finished recording a podcast with Jose, who is a PhD student at the university at the ETH in Zurich, Switzerland, and we talked about all kinds of things, his super cool research with optical materials at high temperatures, like synthesizing them. He's a PhD student there, so that's what his PhD is all about. Quite a lot to do with thermodynamics, with optics, and scanning electron microscopy and focused ion beam sections and all of that. He also recently published a cool paper together with his team, so we also spoke a little bit about that. And his journey from Barcelona to Catalonia to where he is now in Switzerland, in Zurich. So yeah, we talked about a lot of things and what his wishes are and what the followers can expect. So yeah, quite a fun episode, and can't wait to share it with you all. Hi everyone, my name is Pranoti and I am your host of the Under the Microscope video podcast. And today we have with us L Ocana-Pujol, who is a PhD student at ETH Zurich, which is in Switzerland. ETH Zurich, basically one of the most reputed universities or institutions around the world. So, hi Jose, welcome to Under the Microscope. How
Hi, Pranati.
How are you doing today?
Well, I'm actually a bit sick, so not in the best state for this recording, but other than that, everything is good.
What happened? You sound a bit... What happened?
Yeah, basically, I swam into the beautiful Zurich lake recently because we had very good weather, but the water was very cold, and somehow thermodynamics didn't take a lot of care of me, and my body didn't like the temperature shock, I think.
So is it safe to say that the thermodynamics didn't give a shit about you?
That's fairly good to say, yes. But I guess you could also say that I didn't give a shit about thermodynamics because I should have known that before jumping into the water.
True.
Yeah.
And thermodynamics won, so...
Yeah, and thermodynamics, it always is. So.
Okay, I hope you feel better soon, and I hope you have learned your lesson in thermodynamics. Wow, there are so many jokes I can do about this. But let's get started with getting to know you and your science.
Yes.
So please explain your research to us in super simple words, please. Assume I'm 12 years old and yeah, all I know is thermodynamics gave you a cold. Tell me.
Yeah, so I'm doing a PhD here, broadly in optical metamaterials. Mm-hmm. Metamaterials are just some materials that they base their properties instead of in the chemistry. So typically when we describe a material, and I'm in the material science department, so I should know that, you say like, okay, so this is very tough because it's a steel. This is transparent because it's glass. So it goes back to what kind of atoms, what kind of chemistry do we have there. Mm-hmm. In metamaterials, it's not like this. In metamaterials, the properties are defined by the geometry that these materials have in a very specific way. Yes, so the idea is a bit that by the geometry, by what kind of shapes and patterns you have on them,
right,
you can change the properties of the material to a point where the properties are abnormal, are not what one typically finds in nature.
Really? So when you say geometry, do you mean the crystal structure?
It can be the crystal structure, but it can also be bigger things. So I have this example over here just by chance.
Oh, wow.
See, so just a disclaimer, this is not mine. This was a present that we'll get there, but my office colleague during my master's thesis gave to me. He was working on mechanical metamaterials. I'm working in optical metamaterials.
Right.
But I think it symbolizes pretty well what happens. You know, like typically when you press a material in one direction,
right,
it will expand in the other direction.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Here you have a kind of material that when you press it in one direction,
right,
it also compresses in the other direction.
Right. Oh, that's what you mean by geometry. Oh
Exactly,
my
and
God.
this is just because of how specifically these holes are made. I could not reproduce this. This is not my field, but basically I do the same with optical properties. So
Oh my
we
God, that's
like
so
to
cool.
design materials that, I mean, the simplest example with optical properties is, you know that typically when you put something like a straw or a pencil in a glass of water,
Yeah.
it looks like the pencil is broken.
Bent. Yeah.
And yeah, right? This is because of refraction and so on. This is
Right.
because of the refractive index.
Right.
Well, there are examples in optical metamaterials, and actually, I think to some extent that's how the field got started. Sorry, science historians. Where you can have negative refraction. And if anyone here Google's negative refraction water, you will find like this picture of the pen going into the glass and then it coming in the opposite direction, or it looking like it comes in the opposite direction. And that's how it will look if it had negative refraction. So that's the idea. And this is just because of how we design the materials. We make things very, very small, smaller than the wavelength in the case of the optics, or smaller than the deformation in the case of mechanics.
Right.
And this changes the properties of the materials.
Oh wow,
That's
that is
a material, plainly put.
Oh my God, that is so cool. That is so cool. And for everyone listening to the podcast and not watching the video, please head over to the Science Talk YouTube channel and find this episode, because Jose just showed us some science magic with this
Mechanical metamaterial, yes.
mechanical metamaterial gift that he received from someone. And oh my God, that's so cool. Oh,
From Giorgio. That's mentioned him. I haven't seen him in a while.
sorry, what's his name again?
Giorgio.
Giorgio.
Yeah.
Alrighty, where is Giorgio now?
To be honest, I have no clue. Probably in the Netherlands. That's where he's working. But we haven't seen him.
The European continent.
Yes.
All right. That sounds, oh my God, that sounds so cool. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Okay. So you basically, you work on materials to make sure that they are functioning well at like high temperatures, like 1,500 degrees Celsius or so. And you do that by changing the geometry, or
Well, there are like two things there, right? Like, so yes, the basic idea of metamaterials is, let's take a lot of care of the geometry. Let's design materials with a very specific geometry,
right,
so that they can have the properties that we are looking for. Instead of changing the material and going to a different chemistry, we're just changing the geometry. That's the basic idea.
right.
In my subgroup, I'd say, so my supervisor specifically focuses on what we could call scalable metamaterials. So, because, okay, here in the case of these mechanical metamaterials, these holes are pretty big. But another foundational thing of metamaterials, basically, is that this geometry that we engineer needs to be smaller than the actuation that we have. Which means that in the case of light waves can be classified by the wavelength. So what's the distance between the different peaks?
Correct.
In visible light, we are talking, about 500 to 800 nanometers, more or less.
Okay.
If you want to have a metamaterial that works with visible light,
right,
you need your feature size, your geometry, to be at least, let's say, 5 times smaller than the wavelengths. So then we are talking about nanoscience, right? What this led to is that the first metamaterials that were designed, they were designed with this top-down approach, which meant that they were very difficult to fabricate, very time-consuming, and so on. And basically, my supervisor and also the other PhD student, we broadly focus on designing metamaterials that can be fabricated in minutes, not in days, in a scalable manner.
right.
That's the first thing.
Right.
And then specifically, I do that with something called magnetron spattering, which is a technique that allows you to stack materials. And I ended up looking at how these metamaterials can be used in applications in which thermal stability is required. So there are, what do I mean by that? Applications in which you are at high temperatures, meaning from hundreds to thousands of degrees Celsius. There are a lot of proposed applications that require to work on that. So one of them is hyperthermia. This is more for the bio people, but it's this idea that you can have something, put it in your body, direct it directly to the part that you need to eliminate, and then actuate it. It will hit that pellet and kill those cells.
Right.
Of course, this thing that you put in your body needs to be able to withstand those temperatures. Otherwise, it will not get so hot, right? That's one example. The other example, and that's something that I'm working more closely on, is thermophotovoltaics, for instance. This is the idea that instead of using the light directly coming from the sun to generate electricity, we can use the light that comes from objects that are very hot to generate electricity. So there is this thing called the black body radiation. This is what dictates in physics that, when you heat something up, first it goes orange, then it goes white, and so on. It's recycling this heat that can come also from the sun or can come from recycling industrial applications or whatever to generate electricity.
Right.
And these materials that you're going to use there need to be able to withstand temperatures between 1,000 and 2,000 degrees. Okay. And there it would be very useful if we could use some metamaterials because they interact with light in awesome ways, but you need to be able to design something that will withstand these temperatures.
Right, so and also function well. Right.
Exactly. Because things tend to degrade at very high temperatures.
Right, so that's your PhD work, basically finding materials or synthesizing materials or ways for scalable production of these materials, which will be functioning and doing the job at high temperatures, 1,000 to 2,000, depending on the application.
That's a good summary, yes.
Okay, that sounds really cool. So, Jose, how did you end up working on this cool project in Switzerland? Tell us about your science journey so far.
By chance, actually. By chance and luck. So my science journey, I guess, started back home. I was
home is where?
I'm a Spanish citizen. I'm from Catalonia. And
Bon dia.
Bona tarda. Muchas gracias.
Bona tarda. Bona nit. I only know
Bona nit. Oh wow, but that's pretty impressive already.
Yeah, my very good friend is from Catalonia, so yeah. Bon dia, bona nit, sorry, never mind. Sorry, no.
No, that was impressive. I typically don't meet international people who know some words in Catalan, so thanks for that. Yeah, so basically I started there. I did my bachelor there in nanoscience. That was the name of the bachelor. Mm-hmm. I was very excited about it because I think I was the second promotion that studied a degree in nanoscience back in Spain. And it was the only place in Spain where you could study it, the Autonomous University of Barcelona, where it was. So it meant that, we had people from all over Spain. There was this new degree. It was kind of cool. However, I became a bit deceived by the end of it with the whole idea. And I decided that I did not like the fact, quite ironically, I decided that I did not like the fact that my degree was so research oriented. Mm-hmm. It's something that you could say, yeah, what did you expect studying something so new? But yeah. And then I decided to go to the Netherlands, to Amsterdam, to do a master that would take me out of research, basically. So it was a master. It was a master in physics, but it was called Physics, Science for Energy and Sustainability, and it had like these 30 credits in which you could take environmental chemistry, management courses. Like the idea was like to look at the broad idea of behind like energy and sustainability.
Right. Okay.
And as a master, it was very fun. I met great people. I learned a lot. I actually managed to get a student job once a week doing energy analysis. But in order to get your master in physics, you actually need to do a master thesis in physics, a one-year thesis. So then there was this year in which I was doing these two things. I was working part-time. And at the same time, I was researching at AMOLF. By the way, I think you already had people being interviewed from there.
From AMOLF?
Yeah, you had a site in your...
Two people from there. We have Marjorie and we have Syed.
Yeah, I don't know Marjorie. I guess that he or she joined a bit later than I left. But Syed was already there. And actually, I came to know the Twitter account, Real Scientist Nano, because a long time ago, I don't remember exactly when, a girl called Loretta took it over, and I knew her from AMOLF back then. So anyhow, I was lucky enough to end up on this institute, which was a great place to do research.
Correct.
And I ended up liking it so much, while at the same time I didn't like my job so much, the thing that was paying me, that's how I decided to go back into research. And then what happened? Well, yeah, then there was a very coincidental set of steps,
Right.
which ended up with me getting an email. So I applied for a position here at ETH, thinking that I would not get it because indeed it's a prestigious university.
Right.
And just by some kind of cosmic chance, my master supervisor visited my current group without knowing anything about that. And my current supervisor was like, "Oh, you are Esther. Yeah, I have you here in the reference list for this Jose Ocaña. Do you know him?" And then, from what I understood, she somehow realized that she hadn't responded to the email. And yeah, that gave me a kick start in the application, I guess. And then they invited me to come over, and they ended up selecting me.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So it was really a coincidence. I'm very grateful.
Wow, that's quite a journey you've had, and wow, what an unconventional sort of a.
Yeah, to make it even worse, like I only found out about this in a karaoke because I was still like hanging out with the PhDs at the place where at Amov, and they told me, yeah, I was like, "Oh, I'm so happy, I have an interview in Zurich," and they were like, "Yeah, of course, you're gonna get it." Like Esther Werther, I was like, "What? What are you telling me?" I didn't get it. So yeah, it was a bit of an exotic combination. Yeah.
That's great. That is really, really cool. Awesome. So there are quite a lot of things you've done. You have been in quite a lot of labs. And my next question might be a bit difficult, but I'm still going to ask it. Do you have a research project out of all the different kinds of experiments and research work that you've done so far? Do you have one research experiment that you're super proud of? And if you do, I hope you do, could you explain it to us in simple words in the section we call In Other Words?
Yes. Well, I'm going to choose the latest publication that got published because that's the thing you are the most proud, right? I'm still in the rush. I mean, it got published, it got accepted a while ago, but it got published 3 days ago from the moment we're recording this podcast. So I'm allowed to choose it, I guess.
Congratulations. Yes, of course you're allowed to choose.
Just because of that. Yeah, well, that's the idea. It's closely related to what we were talking about. Right. In this case, we were examining silver silicon multi-layer. So you have silver and silicon stacked over each other with sizes varying from 15 to 28 nanometers, if I recall correctly. And
what do you have?
So we had 5 bilayer. So we actually also played with that at some point in the paper, but we have 5 and 3 bilayers, so 10 and 6 layers in total, with a repetition unit varying from 30 to 40 nanometers. So yes.
Okay, alrighty. So very thick.
Truly
for nanoscale, very thick.
Well, overall it's very thick, right? But then we had silver layers of 12 nanometers. They did not get to the paper, but we also synthesized 4 nanometers thick silver layers using this. And yeah, we designed them as a metamaterial to be a super absorber, the near perfect absorption, meaning that less than 1% of the light that goes in gets reflected or transmitted. We designed them for that. And well, first of all, optically, like as we're saying, in my lab, we try to do things that are scalable, right? These multi-layers, I was sputtering them in about 1 hour, while typically these metamaterials take days to be fabricated. However, there's a problem coming with this, and it's that the interface between the 2 layers is not going to be super smooth if you do it so quickly. But actually, we found out it's something that we had already been researched in literature, but we confirmed that actually this disorder that happens of it not being super smooth, it's actually beneficial for the application. So it actually improves the absorptivity of the whole thing. So disorder is not necessarily bad, okay? That's the first thing, and it's actually good. And then we just decided to study what was the maximum temperature at which this behavior would be found. And then what we found was actually very surprising, because there was a temperature range at which the optical properties were still the same, but if you actually did a FIB cross-section, so FIB is a focus ion beam, it means we send ions like to cut it, and then you actually look at this cut that you did with an
It's like cutting a cake, and FIB is like the knife.
It's exactly that. You cut a cake, and if you look at the layer structure in the cake, it turns out that the lower layers of the cake were completely degraded. So we had 5 layers at the beginning, right? And now 5 bilayers at the beginning, and now we only had 3 because the further down 4 layers were completely intermixed. But one would never say that looking at the optical properties, because one sees the optical properties and they are the same, and we ran a lot of tests about that.
Right.
And that is part of the question. First of all, why is the degradation starting down? Because if you look at literature, typically it's assumed to be isotropic.
At the top, yeah.
At the top or somewhere or quite regular through the section, right? And secondly, how can it be that the degradation doesn't impact actually the optical properties?
Right.
And this is what we researched. We tried to find using also simulations, and then that's the thing I'm the proudest about. We did tomographies, so it means, imagine, we're taking a picture of the SEM scan we're just taking a picture of the cake. We're cutting a bit more, and we're taking another picture, like to see whether this is something that just happened at this depth, or if it's actually. And this allowed us to get tomographies that then we could simulate on. So we could do 3D simulations. And this way we found out that this was driven actually by stress. So this was completely being driven by stress and by the change in the thermal expansion coefficient between the materials, which is something that typically gets overlooked in multilayer theory. So in multilayer theory, they always focus on surface area minimization. So on how much of each layer is in contact with the other one.
Correct.
And we actually compare both contributions, and it's driven by that. And actually, what we did, like to prove it finally, was, okay, this structure started with silver, and then it had silicon, silver, silicon, silver, silicon. What happens if we change architecture? If we had silicon on the bottom, and then we found out that actually you can easily tailor where the instability starts. So when we change the order, the thing starts degrading on the top. So, and we could just find about that because we cut a lot of pieces of cake and we looked at them, and it was a structure that at the same time had an interest from the optical perspective because it was a near perfect absorptions, and yeah. That's the paper, and I'm pretty proud about it.
Oh my god, that is so cool. Where is the paper published? And congratulations.
It's on Advanced Optical Materials.
Advanced Optical Materials. Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
I hope you will talk about this paper and show us the cake pictures and everything.
I will. That's part of the plan.
That is so cool. I can understand why you chose this. This one you're allowed to have, like the
exactly. And I'm allowed
really
to
cool.
talk about it,
Absolutely. So, Jose, I hope your research experience has been wonderful so far and will continue to be wonderful in the future as well. However, if you had 3 wishes to improve your research experience, what would you ask for? 3 wishes. Not promising anything here, but 3 wishes.
I was thinking about that. And I also saw that this analysis that you did where everyone is complaining about funding and equipment.
It's not
pretty much, right?
It's not complaining, okay? It's
okay,
not complaining.
But it's the wishes, yes.
Wishes out there.
Those are the top wishes.
There was also the wish about going to Mars. So let's keep also that in mind. Okay, sorry, go on.
No. ETH is a great institution, and I'm kept away from money decisions. So maybe my supervisor decisions would be different, but I have nothing to complain about instruments, not about funding. So that makes it more difficult, to come up with something. So I will come with something more, a bit more original. I wish that there was a bit more of a specialization in science.
What do you mean?
So what I mean is, right now, right now, you get promoted to be a professor based on your research, and then suddenly you are a manager and an educator. And I'm not very sure that is right. Also, you see technicians being forced to publish. So it seems to me that we are going to the old career man, someone who you need to be able to read research, but also like to be an experimental, like to manage the machines yourself. But also you need to be good at outreach, but also you need to be a good educator, but also suddenly you need to be a good manager. And I'm not sure that's the ideal incentive scheme for, and that's not the best way to organize research.
Yeah, so better like changing or tweaking the research structure from the organizational perspective and the expectations perspective, so that the researchers are not spreading thin, because they are needed by the master's students, the bachelor students, their technicians, by the machines, by the publishers, by the funding agencies, by the university.
And the fact that you're a good researcher and that you have good results, does not mean that you are good at
managing people.
Writing, or for example, at writing articles the way, because there's also like a very specific kind of language that you have to use and so on, at dealing with the editorial world, for example.
Right.
So yeah, that's just something that maybe I would wish that I'm not like that. I also have like multiple interests, but I know a lot of people who they like one thing about science, and the fact that they need to do all the other things takes them away. And I think we want those people with us.
That's actually an interesting one. So, okay, what else? You have 2 more wishes. You can ask for a coffee machine also. I don't know why I'm giving you ideas.
We have a great coffee machine. We bought it last March. I'm sorry. So no, but I'll tell you something. And this is a bit unrelated. When I moved here to ETH, the thing I missed the most about AMOF was their coffee machine. They have a great coffee machine at the entrance of the building where everyone meets to have great coffee. And here at ETH, it feels like everyone is more like in the room, like it's a bit more. And yeah, maybe that would be my second one. Like in general, greater inclusivity in science, I guess.
Inclusivity, yeah.
And I mean, I'm lucky, or I'm privileged. I'm a white European guy, but I mean, this same week, we had the case of a postdoc that could not join us because of visa issues. Like this, and I know many. I also have a master's student coming from Colombia soon who wants to work with us, and he's been having this kind of problems for quite a while, and yeah.
Okay, so more inclusivity. Third wish. Do you have a third one? It feels like you are super like taken care of by ETH Zurich. I should really like come to you. It sounds like a great place.
I'm definitely very lucky. To be here. Yeah, the third wish. Let's say, some kind of change in the editorial world.
Oh wow! What kind of change?
A change in which the articles that are published more closely reflect the work that people have done. I think that we are losing a lot of time and taxpayer money, if you want, just because we only publish the things that work out. And there are also like, personally, I have a lot of small projects that were there and there, but that we did not publish because it's too small, and everyone is aiming for this 10 pages article, because that's what is better for your career and so on. And maybe having the possibility to publish smaller but also bigger things, and that they come the same, would mean that I could disseminate my knowledge and people will not have to try this on their own, right?
A journal of failed experiments or something like that.
Yeah, this, and the fact that more people could read them. I'm also, again, very taken care of. So here at ETH, you're very encouraged to publish open access, but that's not the case everywhere. So yeah, these kind of things. So a critical reflection of the editorial model and what it brings.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think just beginning of this week or last week, there was a lot of, I don't know if you followed that on Twitter, there was a lot of discussion with Frontiers, because Frontiers is open access.
Yeah. I didn't follow the conclusion, but I know.
I'll tell you after we stop recording.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so controversial.
It's gonna be interesting because I actually know people who work at Frontiers. They are based in Lausanne here in Switzerland, and I know.
Right, Frontiers is in Switzerland. Yeah, duh, of course, yeah.
I don't know if they are based there, but at least they have a very big office.
I think Frontiers is based, like headquarters is in Switzerland. I think I remember this. But yeah, I'll tell you that after we stop recording.
Yes.
I want to say anything controversial on record. Alrighty. I think it's my feeling from talking to you for about an hour now, that you really like the research part of being a scientist. What else do you like about being a scientist other than using the fancy instruments and drinking the awesome coffee?
Coffee is definitely one thing. So this goes a bit against what I said before about inclusivity. No, I guess it doesn't go against. It's just I wish we had done more. But definitely one of the things that I like is the variety of very interesting people that I interact with on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And actually, that was one of the main reasons why I decided to pursue a PhD and not stay in the private world. Like, because I was comparing at the time, maybe it's a bit unfair, but I was comparing at the time the lunch breaks that we had in the company at the place where I was doing my PhD. And talking with all those people during my master thesis was so fun during lunch. They had all these ideas. Everyone came from somewhere different. While in the company, it was more like buying a house, like more of maybe a bit more boring stuff, I would say. And I think
not so much the science.
Yeah, exactly. But not only science. I mean, we talk about a lot of things also here, like during break. And it's because there's people with very different brains somehow working on it, and it's just great. All the nice people that I met with different backgrounds and so on.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Okay, this has been wonderful. So Jose, before I let you go,
Yes.
What can the followers of the Real Scientist Nano Twitter account expect in the week that you are tweeting from the account? Tell us.
So I will try to first I will introduce a bit my lab, ETH, Zurich, and so on, explain
the
why.
Coffee machine.
The coffee machine, I promise here that there will be a video of actually, now we de-escalated it, we could even phone things there. So coffee machine is going to be there. Then.
Oh, God, I am so happy for you. Sorry, God.
I'll tell you something. It took us 3 years of fighting to get it, so it's possible. Just keep asking for it.
Okay, just keep like pestering, and it will happen eventually. The authorities will give in and get you an amazing coffee machine with a foamer. And
hopefully, because scientists work on caffeine. I mean, it should be scientists right to have that. Yeah, and then I will also talk about my research as well. Just by coincidence, the week that I'm curating, there are two things happening. First of all, I have some practicum duties, so I'm giving some practica. So I will show also a bit about what we teach, and I will bring like a couple of experiments to show on the Twitter account. And then actually on Friday, I have a career day coming in. So I need to structure with my brain and my mind about how to do it, but there will also be some talk about that, about career opportunities during the PhD and what it gives you and so on.
Oh, that sounds so cool. Is it like an open door stay at ETH?
It's at ETH. It's called campus interview. So basically, I sent in because my supervisor encouraged me to start looking at what I want to do after the PhD. And basically, they are going to match me automatically with 8 companies. And I'm going to have a half-an-hour discussion with each of them. So I'm very curious to know. What because very few of these companies are actually into science. They all do science, but not in the kind of science that I do. So I'm very curious to know how these human resources people who don't really know what I'm doing, how they are going to interact with me. I'm just very curious. It's an experience that I didn't have, and not one. So it's going to be statistically representative because it's going to be 8 of them. So yeah, I will talk a bit about that experience.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Oh my God, I'm looking forward to your time on Real Scientist Nano and the cake pictures. Well, not the cake, but the film pictures, the 3D images, and the coffee machine with the foamer, and the practicums, like everything.
Yes.
We want to know everything. So thank you very much, Jose. Looking forward to having you on Real Scientist Nano, and thank you very
much, Pranothi, for this interview. It was a lot of fun.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for listening. This is Pranothi, host of Under the Microscope. To know more about us, visit our website, thesciencetalk.com, and follow us on Twitter at realsci_nano.